All right, viewers, at this point, we're heading straight on over to our first interview this morning, and we are chatting with Ricardo Alfred, chairman of TADCO. Good morning to you and welcome.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to Tobago.
All right, as we get started this morning, we want to start. We saw a video being posted as it relates to poultry and chicken being thrown away in droves indeed. Let's start from there in terms of some clarification being brought on the part of TADCO.
Right, so first, I want to say thank you for the opportunity. But what I would want to mention with this video is that I cannot really speak on this video, because the video does not show any markings, nor does it identify the location or the vehicle number or anyone or any markings resembling TADCO. What I can address is the policy as relates to what TADCO is about and how disposal of meat and stuff is done. Persons have to understand that is only in 2022 we would have took control of the board, in which we would have reviewed some policies as relates to stuff. In coming on, I would have realized that we had some old meat and stuff that was on the compound from since 2009, 2015. And in our policies as relates to OPR and as relates to disposal of stuff, of public assets and stuff like that, we developed a policy in which we would have had to engage an outside person other than us to guide us the process as relates to health. And I'm very grateful for health in what they would have done. They would have come down and assisted us in terms of removal of these meat, because the contamination and cross-contamination of these stuff would have definitely caused some problems as relates to the disposal. So meat disposal is not anything new. As I said, when we came there was some meat that was in a compound from since 2009, 2015, and we could not have kept that there. So we had to engage health as relates to that. As to relates to any video, again, I can't really confirm or deny or whatever, because really and truly it shows no marking as relates to where this chicken come from, whether it is even in Tobago. So that is where we are.
So I want to make sure that we have it clear. You're indicating that there is a policy existing now, or that would have existed previously?
We would have developed that policy as relates to disposal of stuff. We would have met all of the local and international food safety standards as relates to the disposal. And the only entity on the island that would have been there to supervise such a task would have been the Division of Health, in which we are truly grateful for.
All right. So we want to get a little more insight from you. Tell us a little bit about the status in relation to the poultry farm and the related contracts.
Right. So what is happening? Poultry farming is a contract farming globally. This is not something that TADCO invented. We definitely would have provided the inputs, meaning that to the chick and to the feed to persons that are on the contract farming, in which they would then grow the chickens at a required poundage. And then we will now take it back to process it to put forth Tobagonians. What is happening is that we're at a stage now we would have assessing some farmers in terms of what they would have been doing. Some would have been doing better than some. Some will be engaged and some will be taken off the program to ensure that those who are doing very well can push them. What persons do not understand is that when you buy a foreign chicken, the person who mines that chicken is paid already. The person who slaughtered the animal is paid already. The shipper from the US to Trinidad and Tobago is paid already. And then it comes straight to the household. There's no benefit in pushing the foreign chicken because there's no benefit in the local farmers. And when you have persons speaking about these wild allegations and stuff, you're not damaging the company per se, you are damaging the farmers, because we are about building capacity. Tobago last year would have been engaged in supplying a very popular fast food outlet with the same set chicken. Persons would have had the same set chicken in their household providing for their family. But then when you have these wild and people talking about rotten and smell, it's very disheartening. They are only damaging the image of Tobago. Our sales have dropped in December because of these allegations. And you are only hurting the Tobago farmer.
So one of the things we want to get clear, because some have raised some concerns as it relates to the poultry contract farm initiative.
Right.
Who are some of the direct beneficiaries in terms of entities that were previously involved in poultry farming and so on? Because some have raised the concerns that it has become competitive
Right.
with some of those existing in the Tobago space that would have traditionally dominated or tried their best in this market. And now the THA and TADCO has taken a direction that seems to be highly competitive. I want to get your perspective.
So Tobago consumes on a monthly basis about 260,000 birds per month. When you have peak seasons, that number reach up to 300,000. Nobody in Tobago can do 1,000 birds per week. Let me just put that out there. Nobody in Tobago can do that. What this program does is assist the farmers as it relates to cash flow so that they would have a better cash flow to push and expand their business. We are providing the inputs as relates to the chicken, the chick, and the feed. And that person now, through the contract, will now mine that chicken based on a certain poundage. So I could give you 250 chickens and you bring back 250 chicken. It's not about that, it's about the poundage. Because there's a weight to feed ratio. It's a science in based on how much you have to feed the birds at certain times to get the poundage that you want. For those who do not know, everything is down to a science. For those who are involved in the vertical farming, it's 0.75 hours square foot per bird. Those who are involved in the ground is 1 square foot per bird. It's a science as relates to what is happening. We would have been engaged by several stakeholders. We would have joined certain associations. We would have had numerous help from Arawak in Trinidad, Master Mix, in terms of assisting us because they too want to promote that local chicken on the market, right? And why persons might be having their own political sign, that is fine. But what you are doing is harming the Tobago brand.
How many farmers or indeed entities do we have currently involved or contracted within this initiative at the moment? And this kickstarted, this was last in 22 or 23?
Yes. This started in 22, late 22. So we had 63 persons that would have benefited. We would have had other stakeholders as relates to restaurants and a few entities that would have benefited as well. And what I'm seeing really is that as much as persons may not understand, if I can just give you some figures, to take care of 1,000 chicken would mean that you would need about $15,000 to buy 1,000 chicken. It will also mean that you would need between 25,000 to 30,000 as relates to feed. It also means that you would need a further 15,000 as relates to pen infrastructure. Plus you have to pay labor, electricity bill. This is not something that is easily done. And if we cannot feed ourselves, the Cabo Star had an issue. We were able to supply Tobago fast food restaurants and provide a sale during that period. So it shows that there's a level of support from the program. It shows to Tobagonians that there's a level of support by them buying it and bringing it into the household. But when you put allegations and put these stuff out there, and again, you are not hurting TADCO per se. You are hurting the Tobagonians. Because
as you mentioned that, something comes to mind very quickly. Have you had complaints coming and addressed the TADCO from the farmers themselves? Because I'm getting clearly what you are indicating is, let's put it, the political side might be, as far as you are indicating, it's not legitimate, and you're saying it's definitely only harming the efforts that you're striving to achieve for the sake of Tobago.
Yes.
But tell us, were there any legitimate complaints, concerns received coming from members of the Tobago public for TADCO to address?
So what is happening is that we would have addressed a number of issues among our farmers. Some persons had issues as relates to the pen litter, as this is sawdust. Some persons had issues as relates to flooding, dog bites, and other issues like that. And that's why we would have provided a lot of training as relates to the poultry, in terms even to the slaughterhouses. We are trying to get certain investments as relates to bringing the relevant machines that can do up to 3,000 to 4,000 birds per hour. And this is the direction that we need to go, because most of the persons in Tobago are doing stuff in their backyard. But what we are trying to do by providing this training is ensure that everybody has that standard. If we take TADCO out of it, persons will be still slaughtering animals or chickens in their backyard. And this is why training and a certain level of capacity building is important. We had the Lamb Festival in Tobago. Never before Tobago had these things. Never before, when a ferry or boat shut down, you hear no food stuff coming to the island, and we were able to meet certain demands, you know. And it is very alarming. It is very strange that our own, and I want to say our own people, are speaking such ill and such filth, I would call, about Tobagonians. Because you're not doing the company anything, you're only harming the farmers and their reputation. That's all you're doing.
All right. I want you to tell us as well, to whom is this program open? Is it individuals in farming on this small scale, individuals who probably seeking to thrive in the context of their business in the poultry industry? Who is the target for this initiative?
So we would have targeted persons and started with persons who can do up to 100. And then we would have pushed them further from 100 to 200. One person would have started with 500 and they are now doing a couple thousands. Keep in mind, Tobago consumes 260,000 birds per month. I mean, if we have to be sustainable, that is, we are, in terms of what Tobago is producing currently, is less than 10%. So you understand how wide that gap is. And any strategic plan is normally 3 to 5 years to achieve your goal. Everything is done with a science. Everything is done with a projection. There are some kinks in the system that we are working out. You know, we would have had some, again, more allegations that TADCO sent home staff. And that was clearly not the case. You had a lot of persons that would have provided some stuff that didn't match what they said that they had. And we have to do the due diligence and ensure that we have the right person and ensure that Tobagonians are given an opportunity, not just because of who you support or who is your cousin or who your uncle is or whatever. It must be done with some level of integrity and it must be done with some level of transparency.
As you mentioned that, give us an update in relation to the status. So we know that TADCO starred in the news as it relates to HR matters and complaints about going home and so on. Where is TADCO at now in terms of its engagement of a staff complement to be able to sufficiently manage the operations of TADCO?
So currently TADCO has about 50 workers in its cadre right now, as relates from the staff, even on the capital of Paradise. That 50 workers are working very hard as relates to building out what the company is supposed to be doing. We have an HR manager there now. We have a procurement person there now because we're trying to meet certain requirements. Certain suppliers that we are doing now, we don't have to be part of the OPR. We definitely have to build out that structure. And persons are there performing. And we have to give them that opportunity as relates to them doing stuff. Because you can't have a case where today you had 6 subjects and then tomorrow you have 0. Who would have done the verification to ensure that this does not happen? It is a level of fraud. And what we were saying, you're already given a contract and we have to fulfill that mandate. But now we are trying to correct the wrong. You have persons with very strange qualifications that nobody has never seen. They can't bring it in. And what do we do? Do we continue it or do we try to fix it? And that is what we are doing, trying to make sure that everything is aligned with what was there before. TADCO or Ricardo Alfred did not change the job description. I did not design what the requirements was to be a forklift driver. We have persons on the compound who doesn't even have a forklift, a forklift license, but the requirement to get the job was supposed to have a forklift license. What do we do?
So you're saying that you met those requirements there and this was just an effort to try to enforce?
Exactly, because it's a liability issue.
Any change, I know you mentioned in terms of trying to ensure that there's compliance. Any changes, modifications or improvements that took place with the re-engagement of staff specifically as it relates to any of the particular areas? I know you spoke about it in relation to procurement. Is it that did not exist previously?
There wasn't any procurement department at TADCO. There wasn't any list of policies. There wasn't any procedures as to how things are happening. Everything was based on hearsay. Contracts for people who provide the command, the bread and stuff was verbal contracts. We didn't even know what they were supposed to be getting. And we are now trying to have that written contract done up, that conversation with persons, and that capacity building as relates to getting persons to develop and put things in place. The capital of Paradise was done for almost 5 years at a cost of $100 and something US per day. I'm not hearing anybody saying much about it. I would have written to the police in March of 2022 as relates to assistance in locating documents for a project in Gosbo that cost over $8 million. I'm yet to receive any word on that.
That was my next question.
So,
Has there been any updates?
There's no updates. But as much as this politics that we are pushing every day, I'm really appealing to the people, who would have benefited from some of these programs. Please do not get distracted. I am not getting distracted, and I'm not going to lose any sleep over any alleged video that could have been in Suriname, or could have been in Africa, or could have even been in Trinidad. We cannot be distracted. We cannot be. This is a Tobago initiative. This is for Tobagonians. I am a Tobagonian. I would have educated myself as relates to certain aspects of what I do for a living. And I am all about giving back.
All right. Just as we prepare to close this morning, can we look forward to some publishing specific to the facts? Because you referred to a number of things as it relates to the needs of Tobago and the numbers to be reached, and what is an indication that there is a positive flow with regards to this initiative. Can we look forward to some further information and statistics coming out from TADCO as it relates to this initiative?
Right. So what we are doing now is building data. So now that we had 2022 gone, 2023 gone, we definitely can have some stats as relates to what is happening. That's why I can tell you the sales in the chicken dropped. Is it a fact of what persons are spraying out there? We don't know. However, the facts remain that the sales has dropped. And we need to be very careful. As I said, TADCO is a development company. We cannot spend $62,000 on cheese to only make $59,000 per year. It doesn't make any sense.
Is that taking place now?
Well, we'd have structured the place in such a way that it is not happening, because we are all about developing the agro-processors, the farmers and stuff like that in terms of building out some capacity. There are some obstacles. There are some people that are against the change, but we will push on and all will be well.
All right. Thank you very much there, folks. We've got to leave it there for this morning. But this has been Ricardo Alfred bringing us some updates, and chairman of TADCO, bringing us some updates as it relates to the most recent situation. But more than that, the happenings in terms of the poultry initiative. And certainly we look forward to getting even more of the statistics as it relates to the information, and giving us once again as the general public, viewers and listeners, an opportunity to make our very own assessment of the situation and the circumstances. We want to say thank you very much again, Ricardo Alfred, chairman of TADCO, for joining us here on set this morning. And viewers, as we continue and we prepare to head on out to a break, we want to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.